They laughed at her as she stumbled through the crowded halls, a small alien girl, blind, colliding with walls over and over. But everything changed the moment a human stepped in and gave her a gift she never expected: his vision. Before we dive into this incredible story, drop a quick hi in the comments and tell me where you're watching from. It really helps the channel grow. The galactic spaceport of Meridius Prime stretched like a city-sized machine, a hub of trade and diplomacy where thousands of species crossed paths. Among them moved a tiny Elysian girl named Taris, her slender blue form weaving uncertainly through the cavernous halls. Her eyes were milky and clouded, the hallmark of a life lived in shadow. The Ilians were renowned across the galaxy: healers, empaths, beings whose eyes could read both light and the emotions of others. Their homeworld orbited twin suns, bathing everything in twilight that honed their extraordinary vision. But Taris was different. Laughter rang out across the concourse as she collided with another support column. The crystal-like structure reverberated with the impact, drawing more mocking eyes. Several Varisian merchants nearby clicked their mandibles, amusement dripping from their voices. "Watch where you're going, blind one," one called, the translator tinting cruelty into every word. Taris felt her cheeks burn indigo. She had heard this ridicule countless times before. On her homeworld, she had been considered defective, a cruel joke for a species of healers to bear a child they could not cure. When her parents had died in the plague sweeping the outer colonies, she was sent to live with her uncle here at Meridius Prime. His shop offered her only grudging shelter, little more. "Find your own path," he'd said. "I cannot watch over a blind. You are of no use to me." Taris steadied herself against the wall, extending the delicate antenna sprouting from her forehead. Most Ilians used this organ to enhance their remarkable vision. Hers barely let her sense the rough outline of large objects, like navigating through a foggy nightmare. "I'm sorry," she whispered, though the mocking Varisians had moved on. She straightened her simple gray tunic and tried to orient herself. The food dispensary was just 2 sections ahead, her only chance this cycle to secure enough sustenance to last the week. Her stomach gnawed, the small allowance from her uncle barely enough for the cheapest synthetic protein cubes. Last night she had pored over human medical text via audio input. Humans fascinated her, physically unimpressive compared to many galactic species, yet thriving in every corner of the galaxy. No natural armor, no telepathy, no bioluminescence, no enhanced strength. And yet somehow they survived and spread where others would perish. The steady hum of the spaceport shifted suddenly. Alarm bells, panicked shouts, and the thrum of running feet replaced the ordinary din. Taris pressed herself against the wall, heart hammering. "Stand aside! Medical emergency!" A deep, commanding voice cut through the chaos. Human. Emergency signals wailed like sirens, and rushing bodies buffeted her. Disoriented, Taris stumbled, falling hard to the polished floor. Her bag, with ID and allowance, skittered across the gleaming tiles. "My ID!" she gasped, panic rising. Without it, she couldn't access her food or her quarters. Her hands scrambled over the floor, but no one paused. To them she was nothing, a blind Ilian, an obstacle to be ignored. And then came a voice, calm, kind, human. Taris lifted her head. A tall figure crouched beside her, extending something small. "Here, your ID," he said. Taris reached, relief flooding her. "Are you hurt? That was quite a collision." "I'm fine," she murmured, though her shoulder throbbed. "Thank you. No one else would have stopped." "Well, that's their loss," he replied. "I'm Ethan Cole, Medical Research Division." Her curiosity sparked. Humans and medicine. She had been studying their techniques. "I'm Taris," she said. "An Ilian, though not a very useful one." The human tilted his head, genuine curiosity in his eyes. "Why would you say that?" She gestured vaguely to her clouded eyes. "I was born without proper vision. For my people, it's like a bird born without wings." Ethan made a thoughtful sound. "May I?" he asked, reaching gently toward her face. She nodded, and warm fingers tilted her toward what she assumed was better light. "Fascinating," he murmured. "I've read about alien physiology before," Ethan said, helping her gently to her feet. "But I've never actually met one of your kind up close." Terrace brushed the dust from her tunic. "I was just heading to the food dispensary before the emergency crew nearly trampled me." "The food dispensary?" Ethan's tone lightened. "It's allocation day, isn't it? That place is probably chaos right now. May I escort you there? And maybe you could tell me more about how your people see the world. I'm especially curious about your healing abilities." For the first time that day, Terrace smiled, a small, genuine curve of the lips that felt almost foreign to her face. I would like that very much." As they walked, she found herself explaining elision biology in more detail than she'd ever shared with anyone before. Ethan's questions were sharp, thoughtful. He clearly knew his science, but there was an eagerness, almost childlike curiosity, in how he listened. He guided her carefully through the crowded corridors, describing their surroundings so vividly that she could almost picture them. The shimmering stalls, the hum of alien dialects, the flicker of holographic signs reflecting off polished metal floors. "So," Ethan asked as they joined the long queue at the dispensary, "aliens don't just see light, but you actually see life energy?" "Yes," Terrace replied softly. "At least, that's what I've been told. Our sight allows us to perceive the living essence of others, imbalances, injuries, even emotional pain. That's how we heal. We see what's wrong before it ever surfaces." Her voice faltered. "But that only applies to normal aliens." Ethan frowned slightly. "And no medical treatment has ever worked?" Terrace shook her head. "My parents tried everything before they died. The healers said my neural pathways never developed properly to process visual input. They can repair damage, but they can't create something that was never there." When they finally reached the front of the line, Ethan stepped forward before she could protest and paid using his own allocation credits. He ordered her a full meal, synthesized fruits and vegetables instead of the cheap protein cubes she was used to. "You really don't have to," she began. "Consider it payment for the lesson you're giving me," he said with a grin. "Besides, studies show proper nutrition improves neural efficiency in almost every known species." They sat in a quiet corner of the dining area. For the first time in years, Terrace felt something she'd almost forgotten, the comfort of conversation. Someone speaking to her, not about her. Ethan didn't treat her like a burden or a broken thing. He treated her as an equal. He spoke passionately about his work in the medical research division, describing experiments in cross-species neural interfaces. "The big breakthrough came when we stopped chasing one-size-fits-all cures," he said. "Every species' brain is its own universe. We had to start customizing the connection, not forcing it." "That makes perfect sense," Terrace said. "Alien healers have always believed that no two lives can be healed in the same way." As they talked, she realized Ethan's questions were becoming more focused, more personal. He wanted to know the precise details of her condition, her sensory organ, her neural readings, the treatments attempted. Then, as if realizing his curiosity might have gone too far, he hesitated. "I hope I'm not being too forward," he said. "It's just, your condition reminds me of some of the neural cases I've worked with." A flicker of warmth rose in Terrace's chest, something she hadn't felt in years. "Hope. Do you think, could your research help someone like me?" Ethan paused. His voice softened. "I don't want to promise anything I can't deliver," he said finally. "But, if you're willing, I'd like to run some scans. My lab has equipment that could give us a clearer picture of your neural pathways." I'd like that," Terrace said quietly. "Tomorrow morning, then," Ethan replied. "I'll meet you here and take you to the facility. Will your uncle mind?" A bitter laugh escaped her. "He barely notices if I'm gone. As long as I don't interfere with his sales, I'm invisible to him." Ethan's expression tightened, but he didn't pry further. Instead, he set the time for their meeting, made sure she could find her way home, and said goodnight. That night, Terrace lay awake in her quarters, clutching the small food pouch Ethan had bought her. For the first time in years, her chest felt light. Even if nothing came of it, even if it was just kindness, it was more than she dared to hope for. The next morning, Ethan was already waiting when she arrived. True to his word, he guided her through sections of the spaceport she had never explored before. His descriptions painted pictures in her mind: elegant silver corridors, bioluminescent panels, and the faint scent of sterilization fields. "This is where you work?" she asked as they entered a quiet, echoing chamber. "One of our branches," Ethan explained. "The Human Medical Initiative runs 12 facilities across major spaceports and colonies. This one focuses on neurological research." The examination room was cool, lined with softly humming machines. Ethan introduced her to 2 colleagues, a human woman named Dr. Lauren Bennett and a Tavari neural specialist named Zeno, whose translucent skin shimmered like liquid crystal. "We'll be using non-invasive scanning," Dr. Bennett assured gently. "You won't feel anything beyond a slight warmth." For several hours, Terrace lay still as the machines whispered and thrummed. She couldn't understand the murmured exchanges between the doctors, but there was an energy in their voices. Excitement. When it was finally over, she sat up. "What did you find?" Ethan pulled his chair close. "It's just as I suspected," he said. "Your neural architecture is fully developed, Terry's. The pathways are there. They're just not receiving the proper signals from your sensory organ." I don't understand," she whispered. "The Ilian healers said—" "They were using Ilian tech," Dr. Bennett interrupted gently. "Our approach is different. We don't just heal. We interface. We connect. We adapt." Zeno's smooth, melodic voice added, "You have the receiver, but not the transmitter. And that, my dear, we may be able to provide." Hope swelled in Terrace's chest, so fierce it almost hurt. You can make me see?" she whispered. Ethan's voice was calm but cautious. "We believe it's possible. We've been developing a neural interface that can translate visual data from an external source directly into your brain, bypassing the damaged pathways entirely." "An external source?" she repeated, not yet understanding. There was a pause before Ethan continued. "It would require a donor, someone willing to share visual input through the interface. You'd be seeing through their eyes, filtered through our system." "Share their vision?" Terrace's voice trembled. "That's even possible." "The technology exists," Dr. Bennett said gently. "We've done something similar with paralyzed patients, allowing them to control prosthetics through a neural link. But this—" She hesitated. "This would be far more complex. A continuous stream of sensory data." Terrace hesitated. "And who would volunteer for something like that?" Ethan's answer came steady, almost matter-of-fact. "I would." The words hung in the air between them, simple but immense. Terrace felt her breath catch. "Why? You barely know me." "It wouldn't be a full sacrifice," Ethan explained softly. "The interface creates a duplicate signal. I'll still see normally, and when you'll see through my eyes. The feed would run in parallel." "There are risks," Zeno interjected, his melodic Tavari tone cutting through the quiet. "This has never been done between 2 different species. The neural load could be unpredictable, and when there are questions of privacy, boundaries." "What Zeno means," Ethan said with a small smile, "is that our minds would be linked. You'd see what I see. It would take a lot of trust, and on both sides." Terrace's mind spun with questions. How long would it last? Would it be permanent? What if something went wrong? "For now," Dr. Bennett said, "it would be temporary, a few hours at most. If it's successful, and if both of you agree, we could discuss a more lasting version." Terrace swallowed hard, her hands trembling slightly. I need time to think." "Of course," Ethan replied immediately. "You should. This isn't a small decision." As they left the lab, Ethan suggested a walk through the spaceport's botanical garden, a place Terrace had heard of but never thought to visit. "You might like it," he said. "Humans designed it to engage all senses, not just sight." The air changed as soon as they entered. It was warm, rich with moisture and 1,000 scents. The hum of machinery gave way to the gentle rush of water and the quiet pulse of life. Ethan guided her along winding paths, describing the glowing vines from Arelon 3, the soft feathered leaves of the Saurian trees, and the golden blossoms that sang faintly when brushed. He encouraged her to touch, to smell, to feel the garden. For nearly an hour, Terrace forgot about her blindness, lost in the symphony of sensation. As they sat beside a gently bubbling fountain, she finally asked the question that had been haunting her. "Why would you offer this to me? There must be others more deserving." Ethan was quiet for a long moment before speaking. "When I was 12, he said softly, I caught a virus on one of the colonies. It destroyed my optic nerves. I was completely blind for 8 months. Terrace turned toward him, startled. They eventually repaired the damage, he continued. But those 8 months, they changed me. I remember the darkness, the way people treated me differently, and I remember the day my sight returned." He paused, his voice tightening. It felt like being reborn. He looked down at his hands. "That experience is why I do what I do, why I became a researcher. When I met you, when I learned about your condition, I realized we finally had a chance to use what we've built for something real." "So I'm just an experiment?" she asked quietly, her voice trembling. Ethan looked up sharply. "No," he said, firm but kind. "You'd be the first, yes. But this isn't about data or ambition. It's about giving you what I once got back, a second chance to see. I wouldn't offer if I wasn't willing to share that gift myself." They sat in silence, the sound of water filling the space between them. "If it works," Terrace said at last, her voice fragile but filled with wonder, "I could finally see my world. I could heal as I was meant to." Ethan nodded. "And more than that, you could live without limits." "And if it fails?" she asked. "Then," Ethan said simply, "we try again. I don't give up easily." That night, Terrace barely slept. Her mind was a storm of fear and hope. But one thought rose above all others. The chance to see was worth any risk. By morning, she had decided. When she told Ethan, his relief was quiet but unmistakable. "We'll start small," he said. "A temporary link. Just a few hours. If it works, we'll go from there." The next 3 days passed in a blur of preparation. Terrace learned more about Ethan's past, his time on Earth, his work establishing neural interface clinics on Mars, and the reputation that followed him everywhere. "Some call me reckless," he admitted over one of their shared meals. "The Ilian healers say healing is a dance between courage and caution," she replied with a smile. "Too much of either leads to failure." Ethan laughed softly. "I'll quote you the next time my supervisors call me crazy." On the morning of the procedure, fear and excitement warred in Terrace's chest. The medbay was quiet, filled with the soft hum of calibrated machines. Ethan lay on the platform beside hers, already connected to the neural interface. "Are you ready?" he asked. Terrace took a trembling breath. "As ready as I'll ever be." Dr. Bennett's calm voice filled the room. "We'll begin with minimal input, light and shadow only. If that stabilizes, we'll gradually introduce color and detail. Just relax." Terrace felt the cool touch of the neural nodes as they were attached to the base of her sensory organ. A faint vibration hummed through her skull, the bridge between minds awakening. For the first time, she felt something new, something bright. Hope swelled in Terrace's chest, so powerful it almost hurt. You can make me see?" she whispered. Ethan's reply was careful, but there was a spark behind his calm tone. "We believe so. We've been developing a neural interface that can translate visual data from an external source directly into your brain, in a form your mind can process." "An external source?" Terrace repeated, uncertain. Ethan hesitated, then explained. We'd need a donor, someone willing to share their visual input through the interface. Essentially, you'd see the world through their eyes. Terrace froze. Share their vision? Is that even possible? The technology exists, Dr. Bennett said. We've used similar links for paralyzed patients, allowing them to control prosthetics through a donor's neural connection. But this would be far more advanced, a continuous, shared sensory feed. And who, Terrace asked softly, would give something like that? Ethan's voice was steady. I would. The words hit her harder than any blow. She turned toward his voice, disbelief trembling in her chest. But why would you do that for me? We barely know each other. It's not a full sacrifice, Ethan explained. The interface doesn't take my sight, it copies it. You'd receive a mirrored feed of what I see. I'd still see normally. And so would you, through me. There are risks, Zeno cautioned, his voice like rippling water. This has never been attempted between species. The neural load could be significant, and then there's privacy, boundaries. You would share each other's perceptions. Ethan met Terrace's unseeing gaze. What he means, he said gently, is that we'd be connected. You'd see what I see. It would take a lot of trust. Terrace's thoughts spun wildly. Would it last? Would it be permanent? At first, Dr. Bennett said, only temporary, a few hours at most. If it works, and if you both agree, we can consider a permanent link. Terrace swallowed hard. I need time to think. Of course, Ethan said immediately. This isn't a choice you rush. Take all the time you need. When they left the lab, Ethan suggested a walk through the spaceport's botanical garden, a place Terrace had heard of but never dared visit. The garden engages all senses, Ethan said as they entered the humid chamber. Humans designed it for multiple species, each section tuned to different sensory strengths. Warm air embraced them, rich with scent and life. Flowers from 100 worlds released subtle waves of perfume. Alien vines glowed faintly under artificial sunlight. Ethan described them all, the colors, the patterns, the way the mist caught the light. Go on, he encouraged. Touch them. She reached out, her fingers brushing soft petals, then rough bark, then a leaf cool and slick like glass. The garden came alive to her in ways sight never could. For a time she forgot her blindness. She forgot the weight she carried. Then, sitting beside a bubbling pool, she asked the question that had burned in her chest since the lab. Why would you do this, Ethan? Why me? There must be others more deserving. He was silent for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet. When I was 12, I caught a virus on one of the colonies. It attacked my optic nerves. For 8 months I was completely blind. Terrace turned toward him, startled. Regenerative treatment eventually fixed it, Ethan continued. But those months changed everything. I remember what it felt like to live in darkness, to be invisible, pitied, ignored. And I remember the moment I could see again. He smiled faintly. It was like being born twice. He drew a slow breath. That experience is what brought me into this field. I wanted to give that moment back to others. And when I met you, when I saw your strength despite everything, you became the reason to take the next step, the perfect test case for what we've built. So I'd be an experiment, she said, trying to mask the sting in her tone. No, Ethan said firmly. You'd be the first. Yes, it's untested. But it's not about data or headlines. It's about giving you what you've been denied all your life. I wouldn't offer this if I didn't believe it could work or if I wasn't prepared for what it means. They sat in silence, listening to the gentle ripple of the pool. If it works, Terrace whispered, I could finally see my world. I could heal again like I was meant to. Yes, Ethan said softly. And more than that, you could live without limits. And if it fails, then we try again, he said simply. I don't give up easily. That night, Terrace barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she imagined light. shapes, color, the unknown. By morning, her decision was made. She would take the risk. When she told Ethan, he only nodded, though his eyes, she imagined, held quiet hope. "We'll start small," he said. "A few hours, just enough to see if the link holds." Preparation took 3 days. In that time, Terrace learned more about Ethan Cole, how he'd come to Meridius Prime 2 years ago after building successful neural clinics on Earth and Mars, how other scientists called him reckless. "Maybe I am," he admitted with a grin one evening, "but progress never came from playing it safe." "The Ilian healers say healing is a dance between caution and courage," Terrace replied. "Too much of either, and you stumble." Ethan laughed, warm and genuine. "I'll remember that next time my supervisors call me insane." When the day finally arrived, Terrace's heart felt like thunder in her chest. The lab lights were dimmed, cold sensors pressed against the base of her sensory organ. Across from her, Ethan lay on a parallel platform, calm but focused. "Are you ready?" he asked. "As ready as I'll ever be," she said, trying to steady her trembling hands. Dr. Bennett's voice came softly through the intercom. "We'll start slow, just basic light and shadow. Once your brain adapts, we'll increase the feed." A soft hum filled the air. The neural interface activated, and for the first time in her life, Terrace felt something she had only ever dreamed of, a flicker of light in the darkness. Terrace had been turning the thought over in her mind for days. Now, as the hum of the lab filled the silence between them, she finally spoke. "The temporary connection. It's working better than anyone expected," she said carefully. Ethan glanced up from the glowing data display. "You're right," he admitted. "Your brain's adapted to the interface faster than we imagined. Zeno believes it's because your neural pathways were always designed for vision. They just needed the right kind of input." Terrace hesitated, her pulse quickening. "Then, if that's true, a permanent connection might work even better. Once my brain fully adapts, visual processing would become second nature." Ethan slowly set the data pad aside. His tone softened. "Are you asking what I think you're asking?" "Yes," Terrace said, her voice steady now. "I want the permanent connection. I want to see always, not just during our sessions." Ethan ran a hand through his hair. That familiar gesture she now knew meant he was deep in thought. "Terrace," he said quietly, "a permanent link wouldn't just give you sight. It would tie us together constantly. I'd always be aware of you on some level, and you of me. Privacy would change." "I understand," she said gently. "But isn't that already true? I've seen through your eyes, your work, your meals, the people you meet. You've let me into your life more than anyone ever has." He smiled faintly. "The permanent interface would be more advanced. You'd have control, be able to access or suspend my visual feed whenever you choose. But the connection itself would always exist. Dormant, yet alive." She was silent for a long moment. "And you'd be willing to accept that? For how long?" Ethan met her sightless gaze, though they both knew she could only see him when linked. "For as long as you need. For life, if necessary." His words struck her like thunder. "Why?" she whispered. "Why make such a sacrifice for me?" He shook his head softly. "Is it really a sacrifice to share what costs me nothing? My vision remains untouched. The neural load is minimal. And to know that someone else experiences the world through my eyes." His lips curved in a quiet smile. "It's extraordinary." 2 days later, they stood before the medical review board. Dr. Bennett and Zeno presented their data, proof that the temporary connection was stable, efficient, and safe. The board members, representing multiple species and medical traditions, listened with keen interest and growing unease. "What you propose has never been done," said the Trillian delegate, her crystalline body flickering with uncertainty. "A permanent neural bond between 2 different species. For sensory sharing. The implications are disturbing." "With respect," Dr. Bennett replied firmly, "most breakthroughs begin as disturbing ideas. The data shows this link is both stable and beneficial. The human representative leaned forward. Dr. Cole, you would be permanently sharing your visual perceptions with another sentient being. Have you considered how that might affect your personal life, your professional boundaries? Ethan didn't flinch. I have, he said. The interface includes privacy modes for both of us. But more importantly, I choose this freely. I know exactly what it means. The questioning went on for hours. When it was finally Terrace's turn to speak, she stood tall and let her voice carry across the chamber. She spoke of what the temporary connection had given her, the ability to walk unaided, to work, to live with dignity. She spoke of her dream to become a healer again, to fulfill her people's natural calling. By the end, even the most skeptical board members had softened. The vote passed, provisional approval. The permanent interface would be installed, with quarterly evaluations for the next 2 years. The surgery was scheduled for the following week. As the day drew near, Terrace found herself spending more and more time with Ethan, not just during their connection sessions, but in quiet moments between them. They shared stories, laughter, and memories of worlds so different yet somehow alike. On the night before the procedure, they returned to the botanical garden, the place where it all began. Are you nervous? Ethan asked softly. A little, Terrace admitted, her voice trembling with excitement. But more excited than afraid. Tomorrow I begin a new life, one I never thought I'd have. Ethan was quiet for a long time before speaking again. There's something I haven't told you, he said, about why I started this research. Terrace turned toward him. What is it? When I was 12, I lost my sight to a viral infection, he said quietly. The treatments worked, but the virus never truly left. It still lies dormant. Doctors say there's a small chance it could reactivate, and next time it might be permanent. Terrace's pulse faltered. You might lose your sight again? He nodded. It's possible. I've lived with that risk for years. It's one of the reasons this project matters to me. If the worst happens, I want to know there's a way to still see the world, even if through someone else's eyes. Terrace exhaled slowly, realization dawning. So, this connection, it could help you too. It might, Ethan admitted. The interface works both ways. If your visual system ever becomes active, I could experience the world through your eyes. She frowned gently. But my system isn't functional. Not yet, he said, smiling. Zeno believes with enough neural stimulation from our sessions, your visual pathways might awaken on their own. It's a long shot, but not impossible. Terrace sat quietly, absorbing his words. Then maybe, someday, we'll both see the world together, each through the other's eyes. Maybe, Ethan said softly, but that's not why I'm doing this. I know, she replied, just as I'm not doing this for what it might give me later. We're doing this because it feels right, because connection itself is worth the risk. Ethan smiled, a faint glimmer in his eyes. Then let's make history, Terrace. And as dawn rose over the station the next morning, they were both prepped for surgery, ready to step into a future where two minds would share one vision. Terrace reached out, her slender blue fingers intertwining with Ethan's broader human hand. Through the temporary connection, she saw their hands clasped together, a tangible bond in a galaxy of uncertainty. Thank you, she whispered, for giving me the stars. Ethan smiled softly. And thank you for helping me see the world in a whole new way. The anesthesia began to take hold, and Terrace felt herself drifting into darkness. Her last conscious thought was of the journey ahead, a journey from isolation into connection, from shadow into light, a journey shared with someone she could now truly trust. When she awoke, the recovery room was quiet, except for the soft hum of medical instruments. Darkness greeted her first, familiar, endless. Panic fluttered in her chest. Had it failed? Then she felt it, a subtle presence at the edge of her mind, like a door waiting to be opened. Tentatively, she reached toward it. The darkness parted. Light. Color. She was seeing through Ethan's eyes. And then the realization hit. She was seeing herself. Her blue skin against the white sheets. Her cloudy eyes wide but unfocused. Her sensory organ pulsing gently. "It worked," she whispered, voice hoarse. Ethan smiled. And for the first time, Terrace felt the strange duality of experience. Seeing his smile while also seeing herself through his eyes. "How does it feel?" he asked. "Strange," she admitted, breathless. "Wonderful, but strange. I see myself through your eyes, yet I'm still me. It's like being in two places at once." Dr. Bennett moved into Ethan's view, tablet in hand. "The neural pathways are stable. Both of your brain patterns show full integration." "Can Terrace control it?" Ethan asked. "Let's test," Dr. Bennett said. "Try the mental switch." Terrace concentrated, searching the new landscape of her consciousness. A barrier appeared, a threshold separating her mind from Ethan's visual cortex. She pushed gently and the images faded to a soft translucence. "I think I found it," she said. "The privacy filter works." She pressed further. Darkness returned, leaving only the quiet void. "Now reconnect," Dr. Bennett instructed. Terrace reached again and the vivid world returned. Ethan's eyes now showing her the vast expanse of space outside the port, stars glittering against the velvet void, a nebula casting violet-green hues. "The stars," she breathed. "Even more beautiful than I imagined." Over the next 3 days, Terrace remained under observation, mastering the interface. She learned to modulate the connection, maintaining awareness without being overwhelmed. By the 4th day, she was ready to return to her uncle's quarters. "Are you sure you want to go back?" Ethan asked as the cramped, dim living quarters came into view. "I need to speak with my uncle," Terrace said firmly. "He needs to understand." Inside, her uncle barely glanced up from restocking shelves. "So you've returned," he said flatly. "I heard whispers about a human medical experiment." Through Ethan's eyes, Terrace studied him. An older Elysian, tired and small, his sensory organ drooping. He seemed almost pitiful compared to the authority she remembered. "It wasn't an experiment," Terrace said, standing taller than she ever had in his presence. "It was a gift, I can see now." Her uncle's attention sharpened. "Elysians cannot cure true blindness. You weren't cured." "I wasn't," Terrace confirmed. "I am connected. I see through Ethan's eyes." She gestured to the human beside her, his face twisted in disgust. "You've linked your mind with a human? This is abomination. Elysians do not mingle their essence with other species." Terrace felt a surge of anger. "Healers couldn't help me, yet I was called defective. Now I can see, and that is unnatural? What happens when this human tires of sharing or leaves or dies?" he demanded. "You will be blind again, dependent on an alien." "I'm not going anywhere," Ethan said calmly, "and this connection benefits both of us. Your niece is extraordinarily gifted, even without traditional Elysian sight. She's already been offered a position in our research division," the voice announced. Terrace turned to Ethan, astonishment mirrored on her face. Through his eyes, she saw herself, wide-eyed, surprised, a feedback loop of perception that made her heart flutter. Her uncle snorted. "A human medical facility is no place for an Elysian." "That's not your decision," Terrace replied firmly. "I came to inform you of my new circumstances and to collect my belongings. I'll be moving to quarters near the medical facility." As they packed her few possessions, Terrace felt a tangle of emotions: relief at leaving her uncle's oppressive presence, anxiety for the unknown future, and lingering sadness that her own people had so fully rejected the transformation that had given her sight. "Don't let his reaction trouble you," Ethan said as they ascended from the lower levels. "Change frightens many, especially when it challenges long-held beliefs." "But what if he's right?" she whispered. "What if our connection is somehow wrong?" Ethan considered her seriously. "Natural or unnatural, those are just labels we assign. Was it natural for humans to leave Earth and travel the stars? Many said no, and now it defines us. As the lift carried them toward the upper levels, he added, "The Elysian tradition celebrates connection and healing. We've simply found a new form of both. In time, others may see it that way too." Terrace's new quarters were modest but comfortable, just one level below the research facility. Ethan showed her around, guiding her through spaces she could now navigate independently, her mind forming a vivid map of rooms, furniture, and textures. "The research division would like you to start next week," Ethan said. "Your unique perspective could be invaluable." "I'll be researching, not just a subject of research," Terrace clarified. "Exactly," he confirmed. "Your experience bridges Elysian and human medical approaches in ways no one else can. You'll also have access to the training resources to develop your own healing skills." That night, alone in her quarters, Terrace experienced her first true solitude with sight. She alternated between darkness and vision, exploring the freedom of control. When she engaged the connection, she saw Ethan reading research papers, making notes, a mundane intimacy that felt profoundly personal. This would be their life now, separate but connected. Two beings sharing a sense, yet maintaining individuality. Before sleep, she sent a soft pulse through the interface, a signal they had developed to communicate without words. Moments later, she felt the answering pulse, and Ethan turned his gaze to the stars, sharing the cosmic view from the recovery room. Terrace smiled in the dark, watching the dance of light until sleep claimed her. In the following weeks, Terrace adjusted to her new life. The research facility provided structure and purpose. Working alongside Ethan, Dr. Bennett, and Zeno, she applied her unique perspective to refine neural interfaces for species with sensory impairments. "Instead of replicating how a species naturally perceives," Terrace explained during a conference, "we create bridges between perceptual worlds." Word spread across Meridius Prime, the Elysian who could see through human eyes. Soon, patients from various species sought consultations. One case touched her deeply. A young Veritian whose compound eyes had been damaged in an industrial accident deemed irreparable. "I know what it means to be considered defective by your own kind," Terrace told him as she reviewed his neural scans. "But defective is just a word, not a destiny." Working with Zeno, she developed a modified interface connecting the Veritian's visual cortex to cameras mimicking compound eye vision. When he regained sight, Terrace felt fulfillment like never before. She had become a healer, not by tradition, but through her own path. Her personal connection with Ethan deepened as well. Sharing vision created a bond that words could never convey. They developed subtle visual cues, completing each other's thoughts, seeing problems from the same perspective. 6 months later, Ethan had to travel to another spaceport for a conference, their first significant separation since the permanent interface. "The connection should remain stable across distance," Zeno reassured them. "Quantum entanglement protocols maintain coherence over several light years." Still, both felt anxious. What if it failed? What if the neural load became too great? On the morning of his departure, Terrace accompanied him to the shuttle bay. Through his eyes, she saw herself saying goodbye. A recursive, surreal experience. "I'll only be gone 5 days," Ethan said, squeezing her hand. "We'll still be connected the whole time." "I know," Terrace said, "but it feels strange to see things I've never experienced myself." "Think of it as exploration by proxy," Ethan replied with a smile. "You'll witness a whole new spaceport through my eyes." As his shuttle lifted off, Terrace maintained the connection, watching Meridius Prime shrink to a glittering jewel against the blackness of space. She felt a vertigo-inducing surge at the vastness of space, then let herself settle into the experience, marveling at her first view of space travel. The first 2 days of Ethan's absence passed uneventfully. The connection held, though Terrace noticed a subtle delay, a fraction of a second, that created an odd dissonance in her perception. She spent her days at the research facility working, observing the conference through Ethan's periodic updates. Then, on the 3rd day, everything changed. Terrace was analyzing neural mapping data when a blinding pain tore through her head. The visual feed from Ethan contorted violently, colors smeared, shapes twisted, and then erupted into flashes and static. She cried out, clutching her sensory organ as it burned like fire. Zeno was at her side instantly. What's happening? The connection. Something's wrong. Terrace gasped. Through fractured bursts of vision, she glimpsed a conference room. People were rushing. Ethan's hands gripped a podium. He collapsed. Then everything went black. For the first time since the procedure, Terrace felt true blindness. Not the controlled darkness of her choosing, but a jagged, severed absence. She reached mentally for the presence she had grown to trust, Ethan's visual cortex, but found nothing, only a hollow void. "Ethan," she whispered. "I can't see him. I can't feel him." Alarms blared as her neural patterns destabilized. Zeno's voice cut through the chaos. "Emergency team, now!" When she awoke, she was in a hospital bed, monitors attached to her sensory organ. Darkness still surrounded her. No hint of the familiar gateway to Ethan's vision. "Terrace, can you hear me?" Dr. Bennett's voice called softly. "Yes," Terrace croaked, her throat dry. "What happened? Where's Ethan?" There was a pause. "Ethan suffered an episode during his presentation," Dr. Bennett finally said. "The dormant virus. It reactivated suddenly, attacking his optic nerves. The neural shock transferred through your connection. That's why you felt the pain." Fear gripped her heart. "Is he dead?" "No," Dr. Bennett said quickly, "but he's in critical condition. We're stabilizing him and preparing transport back to Meridius Prime." Terrace swallowed hard. "His vision?" "The damage is severe. The virus moved aggressively." She understood immediately. "He's blind. And so are you, temporarily. The connection is suspended. Once Ethan is stabilized, we can assess re-establishing it. But for now, darkness." The irony wasn't lost on her. The very event Ethan had feared, the virus reactivating, had come to pass. They were both plunged into darkness. Over the next 24 hours, Terrace insisted on staying at the medical facility. She waited for news of Ethan, navigating by memory and sound. She felt the uncertainty, dependence, and helplessness she had known as a child. But something had changed. She had memories of sight, reference points, context. Using these, she built a mental map of the facility, moving with more confidence than ever before. "Your neural patterns have changed," Zeno observed after a scan. "Even without the connection, your brain retains structures developed while processing visual input." "Significant?" Terrace asked. "Potentially," Zeno replied. "Your brain adapted more fundamentally than anticipated. The pathways exist independent of the external source." An alert sounded. Ethan's transport had arrived. Guided by sound and memory, Terrace made her way to the emergency bay. Chaos reigned, voices, rushing footsteps, the hiss of pressure doors. "Ethan," she called. "Terrace," his weak voice replied. She reached out, finding his fingers. He squeezed hers weakly. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "It happened so suddenly." "Don't apologize," she said firmly. "We'll face this together. Like you helped me, I'll help you now." The medical team whisked him away. Hours passed as Terrace sat silent, recalling the wonders she had seen through his eyes, the stars, the garden, her friends, and most importantly, Ethan himself. Would she ever see again? Would he? The question circled like trapped birds in her mind. When Dr. Bennett finally approached, the news was mixed. The virus had been neutralized, but the damage to Ethan's optic nerves was extensive. Sight, this time, might be permanently lost. Terrace absorbed the news with a strange calm. "And the interface?" she asked. "The interface is intact," Dr. Bennett said, "but without input from Ethan's eyes, it can't transmit to you. You'd essentially be connected to his blindness." "I want to see him," Terrace said. Dr. Bennett led her to Ethan's room. Without sight, she relied on touch, sound, and scent. She found his hand, held it, and sat beside him in shared darkness. "This wasn't how it was supposed to go," Ethan said softly. "I know," Terrace replied. "I was supposed to gain vision forever, but you changed my life. You showed me what it means to truly see, not just with eyes, but with understanding. Whatever happens now, I will never regret our connection. Terrace felt a thrill ripple through her mind, not the familiar door into Ethan's vision, but something deeper, raw, alive. Her sensory organ pulsed, bright and insistent, and the darkness that had dominated her world began to waver. Shapes emerged from the void, vague, luminous outlines at first, then sharper, more defined. Ethan lay before her on the bed, the walls of the hospital room, the hum of medical machines all slowly solidifying into clarity. I think I see something, she whispered, voice trembling with disbelief. Your sensory organ is glowing, Ethan said, concern lacing his tone. Tears barely registered him. She was focused inward, exploring the strange awakening coursing through her neural pathways. The tingling surged into a rush of sensation, unlike anything she had ever felt. The darkness lifted further, and for the first time in her life she saw with her own eyes, not through Ethan's lens but hers. Call Zeno, Dr. Bennett. The excitement in the room spiked as medical staff rushed to confirm the anomaly. Her visual cortex is activating, Zeno announced, awe in his voice. Terrace gasped, tears spilling down her cheeks. Light, shapes, movement, color. Not perfectly clear yet, but real, undeniable. She looked at Ethan, his hand gripping hers, and he smiled, awestruck. This is incredible, he whispered. Hours passed in quiet marvel as her vision sharpened. Colors bloomed, soft at first, then vibrant, alive. Faces became readable, objects navigable. Her brain had learned to see, rewired itself under the persistent stimulation of the interface. This is more than I hoped, Zeno said, scanning her neural patterns. The interface acted like therapy. Your dormant visual networks were stimulated, and now they're asserting themselves naturally. Terrace turned to Ethan, voice trembling with wonder. If it worked for me, maybe it can work for you. His eyes widened, realization dawning. You mean, you think I could see through your eyes? Yes, she said firmly. We need to try. Dr. Bennett and Zeno exchanged glances, cautious but intrigued. It's untested at this scale, Zeno warned. His brain will need to adapt to illusion perception, emotional auras and energy fields humans aren't naturally equipped to process. I want to try, Ethan said, determination cutting through the tension. After all, what do I have to lose? The procedure took 3 days to prepare. During that time, Terrace stayed at his side, describing every nuance of her vision, every subtle detail of the world as she saw it, colors, edges, and the faint emotional halos that danced around living beings. When the interface was activated, the familiar presence returned, flowing outward this time. Ethan gasped. Light, he breathed. The world exploded around him, colors pulsing, shapes shimmering, auras of emotion flickering with every movement. Is that how illusions see? He asked, awestruck. Taurus nodded, her own heart racing. It's how I've always seen, Ethan, now you can too. Hours of careful adjustment followed. Ethan's human brain strained at first, overwhelmed by the emotional energy woven into every sight. But gradually, he learned to navigate it, filter it, understand it. He walked the room with hesitant confidence, touching objects he could now perceive fully through Terrace's visual system. It's like seeing for the first time all over again, he said. Everything has depth, life, energy. That plant, its stem pulses. And all of you, you glow. Your emotions. I can see them. Terrace watched him, joy and awe intertwining. The human who had given her sight was now living her perception, experiencing a world she had longed to see through her own eyes. The circle was complete. In the days that followed, they refined the interface, mastering control, switching the flow of visual input at will, forging a connection deeper than either had imagined, a bridge of vision, emotion, and understanding, uniting two species in a single shared perception of the world. Sometimes Ethan saw through Terrace's eyes. Other times she experienced the world through his preserved visual cortex, reliving memories of what he had once seen. This flexibility became invaluable to their research, with Ethan experiencing elision perception and Terrace knowing human vision. They developed breakthrough protocols for cross-species neural interfaces. Soon, their work expanded beyond sight, hearing, touch, even the exotic chemical senses of methane-breathing species. 6 months after the reversal procedure, Terrace received an unexpected visitor, her uncle. "I heard about your work," he said stiffly, standing at the doorway of her laboratory. Word had reached even the Elysian homeworld. Through her eyes, Terrace studied him. No longer the intimidating figure of her blind days, he appeared old, clinging to tradition. She could see the swirl of emotions in his aura, pride wrestling with prejudice, curiosity battling rigid beliefs. "Would you like to see what we're doing here?" she offered. To her surprise, he nodded. She demonstrated the neural interface technology, explained how it had given her vision and awakened her natural elision abilities, and introduced him to patients of various species who had benefited from their work. Beings now perceiving the world in ways their biology had never intended, but their spirits had always craved. "This isn't an abomination," she told him gently. "It's evolution, connection, the essence of what elisions value." He didn't apologize. That wasn't the elision way. But as he left, he paused. "Your parents would be proud," he said simply. "You have become a healer after all, just not in the way we expected." Those words meant more to Terrace than any formal recognition. 1 year after the virus changed both their lives, Terrace and Ethan stood together in the spaceport's botanical garden, witnessing a ceremony that once would have seemed impossible. The Interstellar Medical Council was officially adopting their neural interface protocols as standard treatment for certain sensory impairments. Delegations from across known space, including Elysians, had come to recognize the value of Terrace's unique approach to healing. "Did you ever imagine this?" Ethan asked softly. Through their connection, he saw the garden both through her Elysian perception and his own human memories, a double vision richer than either could experience alone. "Never," Terrace admitted. "When we first met, all I wanted was to stop bumping into walls, to avoid mockery for my blindness." "You gave me so much more than vision, Ethan," she said, turning to him. "You gave me purpose. You gave me back the stars." "And more importantly," he replied, "you showed me how to see beyond the surface, to perceive the energy and emotion connecting all living beings." Their journey had transformed not just their own lives, but the understanding of neuroscience across the galaxy. The mockery Terrace had endured faded into distant memory, replaced by respect, admiration, and groundbreaking scientific achievement. Together they had transcended the limits of their separate biologies, creating something unprecedented, a shared perception honoring both differences and common essence. As the ceremony concluded, Terrace and Ethan remained in the garden, watching the artificial sunlight play across exotic foliage. Through their unique bond, each experienced the beauty before them in ways no one else could fully understand. A private universe of shared vision. "What's next for us?" Terrace asked, though she already knew the answer. Ethan smiled. "We keep exploring. So many worlds to see, so many ways of perceiving reality we haven't even imagined." "Together," Terrace said, not as a question, but as a statement of fact. "Together," Ethan confirmed. 2 perspectives, 1 vision. As they walked side by side through the garden where their journey had begun, Terrace reflected on how far they had come. Once she was a blind alien girl mocked for her limitations. Now she moved confidently, seeing the world through eyes both Elysian and human, biological and technological, personal and shared. A human had given her his vision, but what they had created together was far greater. A new way of seeing the universe where connection bridged the gaps between worlds, beings, and perceptions. In that shared vision, they found not just sight, but insight. The profound understanding that true healing comes not from fixing what is broken, but from creating new pathways to wholeness. As they left the garden, the stars above the spaceport shimmered with promise. Countless worlds awaited, ready to be seen through eyes that now truly knew how to look beyond the surface and perceive the luminous connections binding all life across the cosmos. And that was the story.